Hello, all you happy people. How you doing? It's another fun day here. It is Sunday, April 11th. I'm sorry, it's April 12th. Wow, I actually put 11 on the date for this, so that's confusing. But yeah, it's Sunday, April 12th. If you haven't done them yet, you're probably going to need to do your taxes. It's that time. Tax season, yeah, we're just a couple days away. I did mine this morning. I'm not crying. No, it was not bad. It was actually kind of funny because, sometimes you owe one and you get money back from the other or vice versa. I'm in that situation. I owe one, I get money back from the other. But the difference is the one that I owe is exactly $1 less than the one that owes me. So my net taxes for this year, difference, I overpaid by $1. Yeah, no, that's not how it's going to work. I got to send a check to the one I owe, and then the one that owes me is going to send me a check. But it would be funny if we could just go, hey, you guys send that to them and then send me the $1. That would be awesome. Doesn't work that way, though. Would be nice, though. All right, we're going to talk a little bit, waiting for people to show up. And then once we get a few people, we will talk about Daredevil. Yeah. Old Hornhead. That's him right up there. That's my Hot Toys version of Daredevil. I've got another one of him somewhere around here. It's a Q figure. I've got a Daredevil mask in the other room. I am a big Daredevil fan. I love Daredevil. I've got the Funko Pop from the Netflix series up there, along with Luke Cage, Elektra, Kingpin, Jessica Jones, and Punisher. They never did one of Iron Fist. I was disappointed by that. I actually liked the Iron Fist character. I was a big Iron Fist fan as well when I was a kid because, well, it was a blonde-haired guy named Danny. And I was a young kid, blonde-haired kid named Danny. So, yeah, Iron Fist was right up my alley along with Daredevil. So I liked both those books quite a bit when I was a kid. And it went on into liking Heroes for Hire and stuff like that, and Luke Cage. So Daredevil's definitely my favorite, but Iron Fist is in my top 5 for Marvel. Yeah, I think so. And I know there's people who think it's, well, it is the white savior motif or trope. But I don't know, there's so much. It's so much beyond that because there's so many stories and stuff that take place past that it's hard to, not want to see the character because you grew up with it, you loved the character. And even though that part of it is problematic, you still kind of want to see that character because that's what you grew up with. And there's a lot of characters like that too, or, there's a lot of change wanting to happen, or people are recency bias, where they want the most recent version of a character. It's like, and if you've been around reading comics since the 70s, like I have, you want to tell the whole story, you know? You don't want to start with John Stewart. You want to start with Hal Jordan because that's where it started. You know, you don't mind, getting to John Stewart is great. You know, you don't want to start with Damian Wayne. Damian Wayne is like yesterday he showed up. You know, for me, I want to see the Dick Grayson era. I want to see the Jason Todd, the Tim Drake era. I want those, more than I want to jump into Damian Wayne. And I am not a fan of the Damian Wayne character at all anyway. He's just an annoying little punk to me. But so that's my thoughts on. I that's why I like. I want the stories to paced out like the first two Spider-Man movies by um Sam Raimi. I thought were awesome because they took characters that made sense. And then we get to the third one. It's like, okay, we got Sandman and Venom. Why do we have Venom? Venom is much later in the lore. That would be like starting the Lord of the Rings movie at Helm's Deep. It's like, wait, why are we starting there? There's a whole bunch of stuff before that, So, all right. I've got 3 things to talk about with Daredevil. Because not only did we get a freaking amazing episode. So if you're following the series, amazing episode. Really was. That's probably the best episode since the Netflix series. I've also got the comic to talk about. I told you that I was getting a blind bag of it. So I'll show you which cover I got. It's not exciting, but I'll show you which cover. And then I also listened to the new Daredevil novel written by Alex Seguera called Enemy of My Enemy. And I liked it a lot. And I'll get into that why. So, yeah. And then also I wanted to talk about the casting of Maxima and how that kind of blew up all over the place this week. And we still don't know. Well, all right, we'll start with Maxima. We'll get that one out of the way. The interesting thing is that there's been this rumor that Maxima is going to be in the story. And a lot of people thought, well, that means a specific comic was going to be used. Because there's one specific story that has Brainiac and Maxima in it. And Gunn has come out and said, no, Panic in the Sky is not necessarily a big influence on Man of Tomorrow. So right there, you got a question. Other people are saying that Maxima is a cover, that they're not actually casting Maxima. They're casting Wonder Woman, but they don't want that to leak. So they're saying it's Maxima. But Gunn hasn't even confirmed that Maxima is in the movie. So what happened was Deadline came out and said, we hear that there's 3 people testing, or 3 women have tested for Maxima, and they're Adria Arjona. I think that's how you pronounce her name. Adria Arjona from Andor. And a bunch of other stuff, but yeah. The second was it Ella McPherson or something from Fallout? And then there was a third actress, and I don't remember that name off the top of my head. But those 3 were the ones Deadline announced. And James Gunn came out and said, that's BS. I don't even know 2 of those actresses. I mean, one of them, he says, Adria Arjona is a friend of his because they worked together on the Belko experiment, which he produced and hired her for. So he's like, yeah, we're already friends, but I've never even met these other two. So Deadline retracted part of it and said, well, yeah, those other two, no. But Adria Arjona is still one of the front runners for this. Well, and then Variety came out shortly after and said, well, yes, they're still looking at certain people for Maxima, but it's not those three. It's, well, Adria Arjona is still on the list. Eva DiMonici, Sydney Chandler, and Grace Van Patten. Now, like I said, Arjona is, of course, from Andor. Eva De DiMonici, that one's going to be tough, is from The Cleaning Lady. Sydney Chandler is from Alien Earth, and Grace Van Patten, of course, is from Tell Me Lies. Now, these are interesting choices because, well, Arjona, besides already being friends with Gunn and, showing that she could do these kind of things, is currently dating Jason Momoa. So, kind of keep it in the family type thing, which makes sense. But there's another one on the list that's similar in that Sydney Chandler. She is the daughter of Kyle Chandler, who is our new Hal Jordan. So both of those would be in keeping kind of with how Gunn likes to keep things in the family. So those are possible. So those are some interesting choices, but are we really getting Maxima? Hey, Ed, good to see you. Or are we getting, going to be a sneak peek at Wonder Woman? Because we know that Gunn wants to fast track the Wonder Woman movie. Warner Brothers wants to fast track the Wonder Woman movie. So introducing Wonder Woman at this point would make sense. But then again, having Maxima in the movie would make sense too if they want to kind of create some romantic tension between Superman and Lois and Maxima. And, kind of, because again, you got to find a reason to have Lois in the story. You don't want, the first one, she helps save Clark and save Superman, and you got the establishment, but there really wasn't a lot for the Daily Planet to do. So they kind of weaved it in there with Jimmy, and then, at the end, them figuring out what's going on with Lex. So that was great. But can they do that again? Or do they use Maxima as a way to bring Lois into the story? We've heard some of the people who are coming back, Skylar Gonzando is coming back as Jimmy, Miss Tessmacher's coming back, but we haven't heard about the rest of the people at the Daily Planet. So we got Lois and Jimmy and Jimmy's girlfriend, but do we have, Ron Troop? Do we have Perry White? Cat Grant? Steve, I don't remember his last name, but where are those guys going to pop up again or not? Don't know. So it's interesting. I'm curious to see how this is going to play out. But they're supposed to start filming this month. So, and Gunn has admitted there's one more casting to announce, and then everything else is already cast. So hopefully we're going to hear about this pretty quick. And I'm not sure which way I prefer. I like the idea of Adria Arjona as Wonder Woman. So if they're casting Wonder Woman and it's her, great. But if it's Maxima, I would hate to waste her on what could be just a one and done character. So then I'd like to see them go with somebody else, and maybe Sydney Chandler, maybe Grace Van Patten, one of those characters or actresses. So, but yeah, that's my thought on that. So, all right. So, which should we talk about first? The Daredevil series, the Daredevil comic, or the Daredevil book? Let's go with the comic. Okay. I picked up a blind bag. Do you see? I already opened it. So sorry, guys. I did it on TikTok. If you want to see the opening, but I'm going to show you the cover. I've got it here. This is the one I got. That's the Daniel Warren Johnson cover, and I don't love the cover. I'm not upset I got it. There were some that I liked a lot better, some that I liked a lot worse. But I don't know. There's just something kind of goofy about it. I would like the second eye, and it's just this area bugs me. So, yeah, there was definitely some other ones I would have preferred, but the Dan Panosian one, the Ryan Stegman, the Joe Quesada, those were all cool. I wasn't a fan of the TV series one with Muse because Muse isn't even in the book. You know. As for the first issue, um, it was okay. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it. I wanted there to be some more to it. I wanted there to be, I don't know. I guess I wanted there to be more of a story or more of a hook. And it's more just, let's set up Daredevil's world now. You know, he's teaching law at a college, and it just, I mean, that's the problem. Is I read it a few days ago, and other than him being a professor now, I really don't remember much of the story. There's some new character coming in, and so that's my problem, is that it didn't stand out to me. It didn't hook me, I don't know if I'll keep going with it. Daredevil is one of the longest runs that I have in comics. I go from like the mid 50s all the way through to the end of the original run, stuff like that. But I don't know if I want to pick up this series or not. Maybe I'll pick up the second issue and decide off of that. But this one didn't hook me, and I wanted it to. I don't buy a lot of comics nowadays because I really don't have a close comic shop. What I have is what's called Frankensons, which is like a mini convention, Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. But the problem is that it's so packed that you end up parking forever away. So, and I'm not supposed to do a lot of walking while my legs are still recovering. So getting in there and getting out of there, and then, the one booth that I actually like to buy my comics at is all the way at the back end. So it's like a lot of walking and stuff. And I don't really have a local shop because of that. Frankensons and the way they're set up, the other shops in the area don't do well. So there isn't any. I have to drive 20, 30 minutes out of my way to find another comic shop. So, yeah. So yeah, I don't buy a lot of comics. If I do, I buy them online, and then you pay the shipping fees and stuff like that. So I bought like Batman Hush Part 2. I've been buying the crossovers, the Batman Deadpool, Deadpool Batman, Superman Spider-Man, and I'm supposed to be getting the Spider-Man Superman when it comes out. But other than that, I'm not really buying a lot of comics. So I wanted one to grab me and make me want to get back to a shop or order regularly or get a hold of like Miss Jen from the Experience and say, hey, can I order like a month books from you and just have you all ship them all to me at the end of the month or that type of thing. But yeah, it was okay. I didn't hate it. Like I said, I put it down, but I didn't remember it after. So, but if you have any of you guys read it, it says he mostly gets digitals these days. I have too many physical comics already and running out of room. Yeah, I know that feeling. All of my physical ones are in a storage unit nowhere near me. And I really want to get them out and go through them, pull my favorites and sell off the rest, but haven't had a chance to do that. So, all right, let's move on to a different Daredevil thing. I started a new book. This is Enemy of My Enemy, a Daredevil Marvel crime novel by Alex Segura. Now, this was different for me. Unlike the new Daredevil comic, this was everything I wanted a Daredevil story to be. Now, you guys, I have told you before that one of my favorite comic runs of all time is Batman's Hush from Jeff Loeb and Jim Lee. And what I loved about it is that it embraced all of the Batman lore. Yes, it's Batman as a detective. It brings in his friendship with Superman, his romance with Catwoman, the Batgirl and Huntress and Nightwing and Robin. All of them get, Alfred, they get moments. Even the guy that helped him build the Batmobile, whose name escapes me right now. There is a new character of Hush introduced, Tommy Elliott. But the rest of it is a celebration of everything that is Batman. Because not only do you have all the characters and allies, but you get all of the villains, the Rogues Gallery, the best of the best. You get Killer Croc and Joker and Riddler. And, you just go, Poison Ivy. You go through all of them. So it really, it's not every single one, but you get a big enough thing that if you're a Batman fan, it just hits all those notes. It's all the things you want from a Batman story. Well, this is to Daredevil what Hush was to Batman. This is a dive into his lore around a mystery. And it brings in a lot of his allies, a lot of his villains that we haven't even thought about in forever. It's Silvermane, the Owl, the Hand, Punisher, Elektra is in it, Power Man and Iron Fist and Jessica Jones and all these different characters. Dakota North is in it. So you've got this going there. Of course, it's Kingpin. So you get that celebration of the lore. You get time as a lawyer. There's actual courtroom stuff, which comes across as legit. I'm not a lawyer, so I can't say, well, this was right, this was wrong, whatever. But it comes across that way to the layman. So that's great too. It says, I haven't read Daredevil, but if you want a fun comic to read, try Romeo and Juliet and Godzilla. Oh yeah, I've been meaning to try that one out. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty funny idea. Um, so it's a strong story. Like I said, it brings a bunch of villains, a couple that are just surprising that they remember. Hammerhead, remember Hammerhead? Yeah. So it doesn't dive into the really weird ones like Matador and Gladiator or Stiltman. The only thing this book is missing is Turk. Yeah, and because a good Daredevil story should always have Turk in it, Turk Barrett, but no Turk. But the rest of it is great. It's foggy. Yeah, I mean, so I do highly recommend the book. If you're a Daredevil fan, or if you're somebody who's like enjoying the TV series, haven't read the comics, but kind of want to get a feel for what they are, but you like reading books, this is it. Or if you have someone in your life who, may watch the show with you, but doesn't read the comics and they read books, this is a great one. I did the audiobook, which was really nice. Thinking of actually buying a copy of it just good to have. So that tells you what I'm thinking with that. Now, the one downside to it is there's a twist ending that seems pretty obvious. And it might be because I'm a writer, but it doesn't ruin it for you, because you're like, yeah, that makes sense. It's not, oh no, this was horrible, or oh, I saw that coming. The ride is still enjoyable. So, and that came out just a little while ago. So take a look at that if you get a chance. I think you'll like it. All right. Going into the third Daredevil part of the cube. Episode 4. Should probably put the spoiler warning up. What the hell was this spoiler warning for? Spoilers for a show that came out 54 years ago. I don't even remember. All right, guys, spoiler warning is up. We are going to be talking about Daredevil season 2 episode, Daredevil Born Again season 2 episode 5. And you can't really talk about this without spoilers. So if you haven't seen it, maybe pause here or mark where we are in the time and then come back and watch the rest of the episode because I will know. If you don't come back, I'll know. I see you. All right. So this episode is a bullseye episode. And Wilson Bethel is great as Bullseye. So this is just a showcase for him. And it reminded me a little bit of the first season when we saw Kingpin making his breakfast and how meticulous he was at making the omelet he wanted. Well, this was Bullseye making an egg, frying an egg, putting oil in the pan in the scent, and kind of like making his own bullseye. Just his morning routine, how he stops and is nice to the lady that lives next door. He's going by the name of Tony. He made an egg for the cat. So it's a very interesting little scene. And it reminds us a bit from season 3 of Daredevil because of the routines he did in there. So it was kind of flashing back to the character. And the character's been interesting this season because you kind of get the feeling that he's trying to make amends. He isn't happy about what he did, killing Foggy, and that he feels like he was forced to do it, and he's trying to make amends for it. So when we see him, that's what he's doing. He is fixated on, and he comes out and says it later, it's flat out. So it's not even that hidden. But he wants to make up for what he did. He knows Foggy was an innocent guy. He shouldn't have been killed. He feels horrible about it. So, this is what he's doing. And what he does is this very friendly, very psychotic scene where he strolls into a real diner, by the way. The Bel Air Diner is a real diner. It's not at the location they say in the show, but it is a real Bel Air. It is a real diner. And you'll notice there's a live lobster tank in the restaurant. Well, the Bel Air Diner has a live lobster tank. That part's real. They added it when they got to the diner and saw it. So keep that in mind. And Bullseye orders himself a banana milkshake. And that's kind of an interesting thing because it goes to his psychology. Bullseye is a cipher or a copycat. He kind of fixates himself on somebody, and then that's how his choices are made. Without a guiding force, he doesn't really know what to do. So in this case, he goes in and he asks what they're famous for, because if they're famous for it, that means that's what people order. And the woman, of course, says, well, our milkshakes are pretty good. He's like, okay, I'll have. And he made his decision then, banana milkshake. And then he calls the task force and tells them that Frank Castle, a.k.a. the Punisher, is walking into said diner and he has a gun. And then he hangs up the phone and he gets his milkshake and he drinks it very calmly and finishes it right as the task force shows up and rushes in, and very calmly just sits there until somebody notices him and tells him to put his hands up and turn around. And when he turns around, he's got a little straw in his mouth. He's got a toothpick in the straw, and he launches it into the guy's eye. And then he proceeds to use all the silverware in the diner to kill 8, 10, 12 task force members. Just in one of the most violent scenes on television, just throwing forks, bouncing them off of plates and stuff. But he's not hitting any of the innocent people. And that's the thing, is he's very careful not to hurt an innocent person. And as he takes out the AVTF, one of the patrons has his dog. And Bullseye stops and he takes his mask off. He goes, dogs in a restaurant is very unsanitary. And the guy's like, please don't kill me. Please don't kill me. And then he finishes off one of the task force guys and turns back and says, don't worry, I'm one of the good guys. And that's where he's at. He is mentally zoned in to being a good guy at this point, because that's what he believes. And then if he can do his one good deed, he'll find redemption. He'll find abolishment, or atonement. So that's where Bullseye is right now, is he thinks he's part of the good guys. So then we leave Bullseye, we go across town, and we find Daredevil and the people that he had rescued out of the prison, including Swordsman. And they're recording everybody, getting their statements about why they were detained and how long they were detained. And we find out that Jack had been detained 6 months and that he never had a change of clothes or anything else. He was in that same suit for all that time. And he's done. He's like, No, I need to shower. I need to burn these clothes, and get out. But he gives Karen an account that she can pull money from for anything they need. So that right there, it's like, look, I'm just a guy with a sword, but I've got large wallets, so I'm not going to be out there fighting with you, but here's your resources you need, which I think is a great way to handle it because where we're going, they're going to bring Jessica Jones in and stuff. As much as I loved Jack DeCane's character and loved the fight scene, I think putting him aside for now is probably a good idea. Because then we can get in with Jessica and we're still establishing the new White Tiger who gets stuff to happen in this episode. So I'm okay with Jack taking off. I want to see more of him. I loved the little rapport between him and Daredevil. Daredevil's like, I wish you'd stay. And he's like, you don't get it, do you? You're not just a hero anymore. You're a symbol of hope for the city. You become an icon, So all of that's pretty interesting. And I can see kind of where that's all going. But I also think it was a very good use of Jack. When they first put him in last season, I thought, that just seems so random. But now that I see how they used him, and I don't know because everybody knows that season 1 was kind of a Frankenstein, right? They had done some episodes and then threw out a bunch of it, came in and tried to piece together a season with a new creative team. And what we got was this Frankenstein or this patchwork. So I don't know if Jack DeCane was added by the new crew or was part of what the old crew had. Either way, what they did with him through this season makes it make a lot of sense, and it's a fitting role for him. He's a minor vigilante. He's never going to be one of the big ones. He's never, he's just stop fights and stop robberies type of the guy. And that works for him. And I thought that the writing on him was very well done. We also get Angela, the new White Tiger, gets her assignment. She's want to help Karen get some information to BB, and she's starting to get it. And Daredevil pulls her aside and points at the totem necklace. It's like, you know what that means, right? What what comes with that. And she said, yeah. And he says, are you ready? And her response was, were you ready? So I can see Daredevil kind of mentoring her a bit. And I don't know, a little mixed on that because she's young, but she's going to do it either way. So at least with guidance, she might live longer. From there, we go on to Fisk finding out that 19 people had escaped and all that. And Mr. Charles shows up. And there's this great back and forth between Charles and Fisk. And I love the Charles character for this because he's not rattled by Fisk. He's not trying to kiss Fisk's ass. He treats him like a partner. And he says a lot of crazy stuff. And one of the things he talks about is wombat poop. Now, I know that if you looked up Google stats after that episode aired, you would see that wombats or wombat poop would have been really high on the search for list. Because he tells them, he goes, I want to know why wombats poop cubes. They built little blocks And then they build the blocks to, protect their territories. And then you sit there in the middle of the show, you're going, do wombats really poop bricks? Is that what they do? How have I never heard this before? Why didn't I know this? No, it's just making Google. Wombat poo, why is it cubed? Okay, it is cubed. Okay. How does that work? Oh, it bounces around inside their intestines back and forth, shaping it before it could. Why? And you kind of go off on that path. And I did. I absolutely did. Because it's a weird piece of information. And it's a piece of information I had never had. And now I feel like I should have had it. It reminds me of the Death by Lightning show I was talking about last week. That it's such a crazy thing. You would think, why didn't I know all the stuff that happened to James Garfield? Why didn't I know that wombats poop cubes, poop bricks? I mean, there's a term, effing bricks. They do. Can you get a wombat as a pet? All right, that might be too far. I have to think about that. Anyway, so their little tete-a-tete is pretty cool. Buck gets a moment to show off, and Fisk gets a little bit of the upper hand back, which is nice. But we find out that the boxing match is going to be coming up. And meanwhile, the first mate of the Northern Star shows up and is willing to give his testimony linking Wilson Fisk or the Kingpin to the Northern Star. So they're like, oh, we get some evidence now. So you get all of this going on. It's great. And Daredevil realizes that the boxing match is a trap for Bullseye. Hey, I'm going to be right here. You can come kill me. And then fill it with AVTF guys. But the interesting thing is that his first thought is, I need to go find Bullseye and stop him. And I don't know if he wants to stop him to keep Wilson Fisk alive or to keep Bullseye alive. Because it seems like if you just stayed out of it, at least one of them would be off the table. But, that's not him. And he actually dresses up as one of the task force guys, goes and checks out the scene of the diner where Bullseye even signed the door with the Bullseye symbol with bait and ketchup. And that leads him to his old church. And then we get flashbacks to Daredevil as a kid, but they're using clips from the old Netflix show. And this is the first time they've done that. Because I know it might seem weird because they're different networks and stuff. But the deal they made with Netflix is at the end of the day, all of it would be owned by Marvel and Disney. So even though those were on a different network, they still can use that footage. So I think we should expect to start seeing some more flashbacks, which I think is pretty cool because it ties it all together. And with the fact that Jessica Jones coming this season, Luke and Danny next season, it embraces those shows, and I like that. I think they should establish those shows completely in canon. Maybe they twist a little things here and there. It'll be interesting to see if when Danny comes back, if he has the Iron Fist back from Colleen or if he's using Orson Randall's guns that have the chi thing. That'll be interesting to see. I think they'll probably just give him back the Iron Fist and pretend that part didn't happen. But we'll see. So yeah, this is all building up to there's another fight, great fight between Daredevil and Bullseye, and there's a CD involved, and the old neighbor lady. So that's great, but it's all building towards the boxing match, and that's where everything breaks loose because you think we're going a certain direction here, and then Bullseye comes in and he attacks and he's taking out the task force people, and he's very meticulous too. He's only taking out task force people again, even in that crowded of an area. He is so precise to not hurt an innocent. And then there's this weird jagged paperweight or pointy paperweight that's on sale there showing Fisk's head in the city. And he throws that, and we're not sure if he was throwing that at Fisk or at is it Vanessa? I think her name is Vanessa. I don't know why that's slipping my mind. Mrs. Fisk. And Kingpin knocks it off course with the belt he just won in the boxing match. And the boxing match is brutal. Just absolutely brutal. And Vanessa's not supposed to be there, but shows up anyway in white. As soon as you see the white, you're like, that's not going to stay white. It's not going to stay white. And sure enough, because she's in the ring when Bullseye attacks, she takes a shot at him and actually shoots him. So again, not sure who he was aiming at or what's going on. But Bullseye, after being shot down, Fisk grabs one of the AVTF guy's guns, goes to shoot him, and Daredevil knocks it out of the hand with the billy club, grabs Bullseye, and takes him out of the gym. And you're thinking, okay, this just it's going to get worse in that, and you think that's where it ends. But then you go back in the gym, and Vanessa whispers, Wilson. And he turns, and she turns to face him, and there's a jagged piece of crystal or glass, whatever that paperweight was made out of, jammed into her temple, and blood starts just pouring down, and she collapses. And Fisk runs to her side and calls for help and begs someone to help. Somebody, please. And that's where the episode ends. Now, we don't know if she's dead. And I don't know which way it's going to go, because in the comics, there's a history of Vanessa being in a coma. So that's a possibility. But then there's also like Into the Spider-Verse, where Kingpin's wife and kid are killed, and he's searching for them. So did they kill her? Or did they do something that'll put her in, like maim her or put her in a coma? And that he will, either way, he's not going to have that thing that balances him, the thing that keeps him from being way over the top violent and way over the top aggressive. He doesn't have his rudder anymore. So for the last 4 episodes of the season, he's going to be furious. And that's going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because there's a scene in this episode, I didn't mention it yet, where Vanessa goes to the governor, who, of course, doesn't like Fisk, doesn't like Kingpin, doesn't trust him. But she trusts Vanessa to bring the best out in Wilson. And and she says it flat out, I don't feel comfortable backing Wilson Fisk, but I do feel comfortable backing Mayor and Mrs. Fisk. Well, if Mrs. Fisk's off the table, is she going to pull her support and take away the charter to Red Hook, which is what all of his power is currently being based off of? You know, his deal with Mr. Charles and the OXE Corp and those guys. Will she pull that, taking away that power? Or will she, once she sees like the testimony of the first mate on the Northern Star, even though he's killed, Buck gets him and the marshals that took him into custody. Of course he did. Not even sure why they did that. It would have been better for them to put him in, put him in a car with Jack DeCane and just have him drive, anywhere outside of the state, But I mean, as soon as they said that he was getting picked up by the marshals, everybody goes, "Oh yeah, he's dead. He's so dead. He's gonna die." But they have his testimony on tape, so that at least they can use that. Maybe not as evidence in a trial, but evidence enough for the governor to pull the Red Hook charter. I think that'll play into that. It was a very good episode. The fight scenes were awesome. We see Daredevil and Bullseye are very evenly matched in a lot of ways. Kingpin, his brutality, as I was watching it with Lisa, and Lisa looked at it and went, "Why is he doing this? Why is he in the boxing match? He's going to lose. Or if he wins, it's just totally made up. And I'm like, I know in the comics, Kingpin is a hell of a fighter. And we saw that some in the Netflix show, but we really haven't seen it in the new Disney Plus. And where she watched the Netflix show, it didn't stick out to her. That final fight in the first season, or the fight at the end of the third season. So I'm curious how that's going to come across to a lot of people. Oh, it's a charity fight, and oh yeah, he beat the crap out of that guy. That guy must have been a really bad boxer. I'm fascinated to see what they're going to do next, where this is going to go, because Kingpin Unhinged changes the dynamic a lot. I mean, you guys remember in the first season of the Netflix show when that guy embarrassed him in front of Vanessa, and he pounded the guy's head in with the car door. It's like, that's... So now he's more powerful, and he's got an entire task force, and he's got Buck. Should be interesting, So we've got that to resolve. We got the Bullseye thing to resolve. We got the Heather Glenn thing going on. Don't know where that's going to go. So there's still a lot at play with at the halfway point. But, Jack is gone. No more swordsman, which is a shame. It was the right time to write him out, but still would like to have seen more. So. All right, guys. So that's my thoughts on that. Did you guys have anything you want to share? Otherwise, we're probably going to be wrapping up this episode pretty quick. I can turn the spoiler thing off and put the Obsidian Moon one back on. Did you get a chance to check out that Kennedy-Lincoln comparison I sent you a couple of weeks ago? Curious what you thought. I started watching it and got pulled away and haven't gotten back to it, but I still have the link, so I will watch that. I appreciate you sending that to me, so I will get back to that. Um, yeah, the only other thing I'm watching right now is the Pit, which is such a good show, and we're one episode away from seeing what's going on there. So, season finale of that, but that's a really strong show. Um, Something else we just finished. Caught up on like NCIS Origins. Did you talk about the new Punisher special trailer? You're right. You know what? Um, I saw the trailer. It didn't do much for me. And I only watched it once. So I'm gonna have to watch it a couple more, again. But when I first saw it, I was just like, oh yeah, it's a Punisher thing. You know, I think it's supposed to deal with Ma Nucci from the Welcome Back Frank series. So yeah, let me watch it again this week, and we'll talk about it next week. And like I said, I just haven't had a chance, and then we're going to get that pretty soon. Man, we're getting so much good stuff right now. We're getting Daredevil, then we're going to get that, and I haven't started watching it yet, but I want to watch the animated Mall series on Disney Plus. We're going to get Supergirl, we're going to get Spider Man, we're going to get Doomsday, we're going to get the Lanterns. We're supposed to still get Vision Quest. I mean, there's a ton of stuff coming out. So, and that's a notice to me that my dinner is ready. So, what was the name of the show about Pres Garfield and Arthur? It's called Death by Lightning. It's on Netflix. It's a 4 episode series. So, well worth watching. I was, like I said, blown away. I spent the whole thing going, how did I not know about this? How did I not know about that? So, all right, guys, I am going to wrap it up there. I will see you all next week. Thank you for tuning in. Have a great week. Good to see you too, Ed. I hope you're still recovering, getting better. So, all right, I will see you guys all next Sunday. I'll have more Daredevil to talk about. We'll have a pit finale if you guys are into the pit and see what else comes up. So, see you all then. Take care, be safe, and remember, get your taxes done.